So two big areas that we look at are range of motion and their strength. So let's talk about range of motion first. Okay, so here's his results. Again, he's a right-handed thrower. Some things that I want to highlight with this. He has a 30-degree loss of shoulder flexion, not elbow, shoulder on his throwing side. And we see this all the time. We know that the act of throwing, again, is fairly violent, and we have those cumulative eccentric contractions that happen. So oftentimes we have the lat, the teres major, that's trying to decelerate the arm in the act of throwing. They become a little bit more dense, and you lose overhead elevation. That can have a significant effect on their arm slot, as well as the amount of external rotation they can have, because these muscles are internal rotators, right? So it may limit their external rotation and cause some extra stress on the ligament. Anytime your shoulder's tight into external rotation, you might have some stress. So I almost feel like shoulder flexion is a barometer of how beat up that person is. And we'll see people that come in like this with a 30-degree loss of overhead flexion. That's a big area that we're going to want to clean up during the early phase of this rehabilitation, okay? The second thing now to look at is his total rotational motion. So combining external and internal rotation of the shoulder. And you can see here that on the right side, his total rotational motion is 10 degrees more than his non-throwing side. And we know from extensive research of thousands of people that your total rotational motion should be about the same side to side, even in athletes. What we'll see though is a shift. They'll have more external rotation and less internal rotation on their throwing side. But again, if you add them up, total rotation should be the same. So this person has 10 degrees more total rotation. That to me is going to put more stress on the ligament as well, because you can tell by looking at these numbers here that it probably came from too much external rotation. So he has 27 more degrees external on his throwing side and a 17-degree loss of internal. Those numbers should be close to the same. So I think he has a 10-degree increase in external rotation. And in our experience, this comes from things like long toss and weighted balls over the course of an off season. We've published 2 studies now on weighted balls that show that it increases the amount of layback and external rotation that you can have, and that does help with velocity, but it also puts stress on the elbow, right? And we see this all the time. Most kids don't get hurt doing a velocity program. They get hurt trying to pitch with that increased velocity and that increased external rotation. So very common finding for us. When we look at strength, there's a couple of things we want to also talk about here. So on his throwing side, you can see he has a 12% loss of external rotation strength. I think shoulder external rotation strength is one of the most important areas to focus on. It's so important for helping to stabilize the shoulder. It has a 12% difference. But what we do is we actually look at a body weight ratio because that's more important to us. This is a pretty big kid. He's 200 pounds, even though he's 17, right? A 14% external rotation strength to his body weight, to me, is too low. I want that to be about 18%, I'd say, at minimum for him. So he's got a little bit of a ways to go. And because his external rotation is weak, you also see this poor balance in his ER-IR ratio, where he only has about 48%. So it's essentially half the strength of his internal rotators. Again, that's an imbalance. That needs to be closer to 2/3, right? So a couple of strong areas here that I think we found that should be good. Now, keep in mind, his grip and his opposition look great. So even though he has a little discomfort in his flexor mass and he's a little bit of a signal there, I don't think that's going to be that big of an issue. It's just something we're going to have to deal with in the early phase. So let's summarize a little bit what we found. Well, he has positive testing of his UCL, right? A little bit in his flexor mass, but really positive testing in his UCL. To me, that's his structural diagnosis. He has a partial UCL tear, a sprain of his UCL ligament, right? That's his structural diagnosis. Functional diagnosis, the big areas we're going to work on, he has a loss of overhead shoulder elevation. He has a gain in external rotation range of motion. That's not good either. He has a loss of elbow range of motion just because it's a little cranky, and he's weak going into external rotation.